Hi, Analisa Six here with the Sober Curator and the Lady of Leisure to bring you the June 2023 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Scorpio, Sun, and Rising placements. I'm always tongue twistering when I try to say that whole thing in the beginning. Hi, Scorpio, Sun, or Rising, or both person. How are you? Let's dive in. Before we dive into your horoscope, I doubt the same person is going to watch this, but I got my first dislike on a video that I've posted on YouTube, which in some ways is kind of surprising considering now that I'm doing horoscope videos for every sign. I have a lot of YouTube videos up, but I've never gotten a dislike, which is, nice. Like my ego very much appreciates either no likes or likes, which I usually will only get maybe one or two likes. I don't get that many likes, but I've never had a dislike. And I've never even really paid attention to the fact that I've never had a dislike. I got my first one on one video last month. And guess what sign it was that did it? If you were to just take a guess. Scorpio. I laughed so hard that my first dislike on a video was on a Scorpio video because y'all are moody and haters. Y'all love to hate. I'm sorry. I love Scorpios. I have so many in my life. And I think the reason why I love Scorpios is because I also love to hate on shit. Not as much anymore. I mean, I try to be a pretty positive person, but it just makes me laugh. Like, I think that talking shit and hating on stuff is kind of funny, you know? I mean, I like watching reality shows for that reason, right? Where you're like, oh my God, that person's crazy. But I also really love how dry and flippant and sarcastic Scorpios are, and also how argumentative and like take no shit Scorpios are. Like, that's something that I feel like I also kind of embody, and I appreciate it. Like a lot of my Scorpio dominant friends, I feel like we get into really deep and meaningful conversations, but we also can be super superficial, super superficial. We can be superficial and kind of bitchy and flip shit and not agree with each other, and call out each other's shit, but in a fun way, But I also know, like, I don't want to fuck with my Scorpio friends. Like when they're in a bad mood, I'm going to just stay away. So when I saw that I had a dislike and that it was on Scorpio, for one, I'm kind of like, I rewatched some of the video back. So I was like, God, what could I have said or done that was like so willing to hit the dislike button? And I think it was just me. Like, I don't think it had anything to do with what I specifically said. I mean, maybe I'm just guessing, but I feel like I'm an acquired taste. Like, you either like me or you don't. Like, that's always how it's been in my life, usually. Like, people either really like me or they just, I'm not for them. And I'm totally okay with that because I feel that way about things too, mostly. But when I was watching it, I was like, God, I don't feel like there's anything I specifically said that was like dislike worthy other than just not liking me. So I also gained a lot of subscribers last month and then lost one. And I feel like maybe that was the same Scorpio, or probably a Scorpio. Anyways, I'm just watching you guys. If I get dislike videos on mostly Scorpio videos, that's going to make me laugh. But normally, like, my Leoness would get my feelings hurt by something like that. I would be very like, oh man, what did I do to like make someone not like this, or, whatever. And I thought it was so stereotypically funny that I actually really enjoyed it. So if you're the one that disliked my video out there, thank you. You gave me a good laugh. And I will forever remember that my first dislike was on a Scorpio video. And I'm just assuming that person is Scorpio because why else would you be watching it? I think it's hysterical. All right, Scorpio, sorry about that, but I had to bring it up because it's too funny to me. Today is June 1st that I'm recording this video. I did the other horoscopes. Aries through Virgo on the 27th. So I was a little bit further behind when I did those, and now it's June 1st. Happy June. We're here. We made it. We start out the month with the sun in Gemini at 11 degrees and Mercury in Taurus at 16 degrees. And Mercury, we're finally out of the Mercury shadow, but Mercury is ingressing towards Uranus. So we're about to have a Mercury Uranus conjunction. And so things might still feel wonky. If you're like, God, it's not Mercury retrograde anymore, but why does everything still feel wonky? That's why we have this ingress towards Uranus, and Uranus is the planet that represents chaos, destruction, revolution, change, surprise, that kind of stuff. And so, Mercury being the planet that represents communication, a lot of times when Mercury and Uranus are together, communication stuff goes haywire, technology goes haywire, certain things around that, same kind of Mercury retrograde stuff that we have talked about in the past, are discombobulated again. So again, it's, going to feel a little bit kind of like a haywire couple of days. We're in that bubble right now though. So the first week of June might just feel like, oh my gosh, like when is it gonna stop? The area of the Scorpio chart for the horoscope that this Mercury conjunction with Uranus is hitting is in the area that rules relationships, like partnerships. So romantic partnership, best friends, and business partnerships. And you've had Mercury in this area of the chart since April, because Mercury has been in Taurus since then. And that's where it was retrograde. And the area that's highlighted, makes communication in our relationships wonky. We're working on having more constructive or positive communication with partnered types of relationships. So again, best friends, business partners, or, romantic partners. If you're in a relationship and you went through some hurdles during Mercury retrograde in communication, that was why, with Mercury passing through that. And so, Mercury's that reflect, review kind of energy where we really have to work out, figuring out kind of a new way or a way that's better, moving forward. And so this Mercury Uranus conjunction that's happening, Uranus, might make us kind of have some insight or breakthrough around how to make that happen, but it might come through another challenge or conflict that maybe we weren't necessarily anticipating. It could be something over money, having it in Taurus, or over, kind of the functionality of something. It could be a very practical thing that the breakthrough is over, but it might happen in a destructive way. Like it's kind of like, oh my gosh, we're having an argument or a fight over something that's really simple, or not necessarily, something that we normally would have an argument or fight about. But a lot of times it's because the issue is not actually what the argument or the fight is about. It's about the trigger that is, getting triggered underneath the actual issue. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to kind of have some conflict in your communication with a partner in some form or another, but there's also a lot of opportunity for you guys to work through it and have resolution and have breakthroughs and insights as to what the deeper parts of it are, and kind of, what needs your attention. So, the first week, we're all experiencing this conjunction energy. And so we're all, having a little bit of this haywire feeling somewhere in our charts. But for you, it's highlighted around, that partnership or relationship. If you're not in a relationship or any direct partnerships, like I said, you could have this with a coworker, like a business partner, or somebody that you're friends with at work in a partnered kind of way. It could happen with a best friend, where there's some kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication. Another thing that could happen though is if you're dating, this could have been a rocky time for you in terms of communication and things working out in that way. My dog is being really cute right now, and I feel like I have to share him. He's just so sweet. You are so precious. Okay, so moving on. Jupiter is also in this area of the chart as of last month, and I'm just touching on it really quick to just say that even though we've got some of this mercurial energy here, Jupiter is actually going to be in the area of the horoscope chart of relationship over the next year. And Jupiter brings growth, expansion, and abundance. And so it's also a positive time for your relationships in terms of evolving, growing, and, you kind of maybe learning more about partnership and what that means to you and how you want to grow or expand within your partnership. So that's going to be highlighted over the next year. Let's see what else is going on. So Venus is in Cancer still. She entered Cancer last month, and she's going to be there until the 5th. And so the area that Venus has been passing through over the last month for you is the area that has to do with long distance travel. So, you know, if you were in the mood to take trips, or if you had kind of more of this restless energy, like you needed to get out of your mundane routine and explore and expand in deeper ways, whether it was out in the world or even academically, or you know, the ninth house is where Venus is passing through, and there's so many things that fall into this area. You could end up being really fascinated by something that you want to learn more about, and you either self-educate, like self-reading, self-studying, or you could be taking a class or some kind of educational program that, you know, expands that awareness in that way. Or it has kind of this wanderlust energy where we feel like we need to break free of what's going on in our lives, and we need to experience more freedom and fun and growth in how we're relating to the world. And so, and all of the above, like that could be something where you're feeling all of it. So if you've been in kind of this place where your routine or what's been mundane has been just not feeling good, and Venus has, you know, been there kind of pushing you to want to grow past that, she's going to be finishing that up over the first 5 days of June. And then she's going to be entering Leo on the 5th. And that's actually going to be hitting the area of the Scorpio horoscope that has to do with your career. You already have Mars here. Mars entered Leo at the end of May, and now Mars is going to be in Leo for the whole month of June and ramping up energy in your work life. So work is getting elevated. You might be required to work more. You might be experiencing an increase of busyness wherever you're working, or if you're working for yourself, you might see an increase in business. And then Venus is going to be here until October. And Venus passing through the area of career is great. It's such a positive time for you to get more income, more money. It's also a good time for you if you're looking at changing your job. Like, this is a positive time in doing that, because your career is getting a big blessing. If you want to get promoted at your job or elevated in your job in some way, this is also a positive time for that. If you want to get a raise, this is a positive time to ask for that. So Venus coming in is really blessing this area. However, you know, Venus and Mars have some tension when they're together in this area. So Mars is definitely going to be bringing challenges here, and Mars will be here for the next month. But Mars is leaving Leo in July, and so some of that tension will ease as Venus stays here. Once Venus is here kind of on her own, then it's a little bit less tense. However, Venus will be stationing retrograde at the end of July, which we'll get into next month's horoscope, and she'll be retrograde until September. So when Venus is retrograde, we do experience some challenges. So there will be more challenges kind of coming with maybe some of the benefits of this increase in business. And it's kind of like a more money, more problems kind of thing, right? It's like, even if we want more work or better work or a promotion, you know, I know for me, like, I fought getting promoted at jobs for a long time because I was really young, and I was a really good worker when I was younger. And so a lot of times people would want to promote me into management. But, you know, I was playing music, I was touring, I was doing all these things, and I was partying. I did not want the responsibility of becoming a manager. And a lot of times I would get pushed into it by my superiors, and then I wouldn't be happy and I would quit my job because it was too much responsibility. And then as I got older, I got into this weird space where I didn't necessarily want to be a manager, but I couldn't handle being under that. I couldn't handle getting paid less. I couldn't handle being treated like I was 19 when I wasn't 19 anymore. And I realized, like, oh, I actually am ready to step into a management position. And, you know, of course, there's more pay, there's benefits, but there's also more work, more responsibility, more all those things. So it does turn into kind of a more money, more problems. But then when you're evolving in yourself, you start to realize that you can handle more a lot of times. And you also realize that you don't really want less. You know, you're kind of like, well, more money, more problems, but I actually really enjoy having more money, more problems than the latter, which is less and not having, you know, as much security or job security, right? So it's kind of that double-edged sword when we have Venus here, where we might get a lot of opportunities. We might feel like there's a boost happening and we're supported in this way. But, you know, we might also feel like, oh my gosh, this is a lot right now. Can I handle it? You know, so because Mars is going to be here with Venus, we might be feeling some of that, like the fear of leveling up a little bit. But again, like I said, it should get better by July, but Venus will be stationing retrograde. So we might be feeling like we might be going, did I really want this? Did I really want to level up? Double-edged sword with that stuff, right? Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit now and talk about what's happening on June 3rd. So a couple days from today, we're going to have a full moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. And the area that that's hitting in the Scorpio horoscope is the area that has to do with money and finances. And so full moons are all about manifesting and also releasing. And so this is a really positive time for you to ask yourself, what do you want to call into your life when it comes to money and also financial security and your relationship to your own self-worth? And so if you want to do a ritual where you set intentions around manifesting more money, more abundance into your life, that is really supported during this full moon for the sign of Scorpio. And also your relationship to self-worth. So if you're somebody that struggles with seeing yourself as worthy of having the life that you want financially or the security that you want financially, this is a really positive time to maybe write down what some of those insecurities are that you have around money and burn it after you write it down and kind of release those insecurities, and then write down more of what you want to feel. You want to feel confident around your relationship with money. Maybe you want to heal trauma from the past around money. Essentially money and material security and the way we feel worthy of those things is the highlight for this full moon, and also our values and belief systems around that. So, I think that money is a energy exchange, and the way that we're raised by culture, society, the community that we live in, and also the way our parents raise us has a lot to do with what our relationship is to money and financial security. And everybody has a different idea of what that is, right? Like some people only see themselves as financially secure if they have a certain amount of money saved in the bank. Some people see themselves as financially secure if they're just able to pay their bills every month. Some people see themselves as financially secure if they, own a house and then have a certain level of money saved in the bank. Some people only see themselves as, secure if they have health insurance plus a house plus a certain amount of money saved plus a Roth IRA account plus of this plus of that. You know what I mean? It's different for everybody. I lived so much of my life living paycheck to paycheck and as a renter with hardly ever any savings that I feel pretty secure on a very little amount. But as I get older, and I have assets and I have health problems and I start taking on more, I start to feel less and less secure without more of these safety nets. And I think age and where we're at in our life plays a role on what those goals are, or the things that we value in that way. So depending on who you are, like whether you're, in your 20s or your teens or your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, watching this, like different things are going to speak to you, right? I know for me, one of the big motivators in terms of having assets and financial security that I didn't have when I was younger was watching my grandparents age. And my grandma, who I adore and love, when she was, aging and starting to get into more like not having mobility and things like that, she really wanted to die in her home. And so she had to have a staff, and my dad was there, helping to take care of her. And it was a lot. And watching her in her own home, as grateful as I am that she got to live the rest of her life out in her home and have that, there's a lot of things that happened in that home. Like rats taking over the house and feces everywhere from the dog. And there was a lot of things that slipped through the cracks, and it was a big house. Like she did not need to be by herself in that big of a house for one person, and so even though I'm grateful that she got to have that, it really made me reflect on the fact that I'm not having kids, and that by the time if I live, to be that age, like I'm going to have to pay for my care, and I want to be able to afford care where I live somewhere really clean with good health care, where I'm somewhere that I want to be, like all those things started to get into my mind. And so I started to have this level of care around my old age that I never thought about before. It was like, gosh, what do I want? And realizing too that what I want is really expensive. So that's my motivation for having abundance in life, is just being able to die comfortably, honestly. But you know, when I was younger, financial security for me meant that I could go out and eat, you know, at restaurants that I wanted to eat at and get drunk at the bars I wanted to get at and still pay my rent and my electricity bill. You know, I didn't really care about that stuff. So it's different for everybody. It's up to you what you want to focus on and what your relationship is to those things, and knowing that those things are always changing. They mean different things to different people. And, you know, that can be kind of a fun thing for some people to reflect on. Sometimes it's anxiety inducing, but I know for me, when I started really spending more intention on my relationship to money, my relationship to it did get better. And so I think it is nice to kind of focus on growing and working through some of those things that we are working through in ourselves. Let's see here. So after the full moon, Venus will move into Leo a couple days later. And then on June 11th, Mercury is going to finally leave Taurus after being there since April and enter one of its home signs of Gemini, which I'm really excited about. And so, you know, we're in Gemini season, and then Mercury is going to join the Gemini party. And the area that this is highlighting for you is the house that rules marriage. It rules shared resources and assets. So again, we're getting kind of this highlight on some of the themes around material security or finances, assets, you know, money that we have invested or taken out through a loan. There's debts are kind of focused on. And making plans around that stuff is highlighted while Mercury is here. Also, you know, if you're planning on getting married, you know, the plans around that are highlighted. This is a positive time to work out those plans. Sex also gets highlighted here. So our relationship with sex and intimacy. So those are things, if we're communicating that with our partner, like those are themes that come up. Death is also here. So if somebody passes and we're dealing with their inheritance, or even getting that stuff in order for ourselves, like writing wills or figuring out kind of what we're going to do in that way. So all those things are a theme with Gemini season because the sun is here, but also Mercury coming to the party helps you maybe put those things into motion in terms of making the plan. Maybe you're not executing the plan, but you're figuring out a lot of the moving parts of the plan. So those are themes. Also, if you're refinancing something, that can be a plan, selling something, you know, those types of things. And also having, like, if you are married or you live with other people and there's shared resources and a shared pot of money, those things get highlighted. And if there's, you know, plans that you need to make around those things, that gets highlighted and talked about as well. A few days later, we're going to have Saturn stationing retrograde on the 17th. I also want to make note, because I'm making this note in all the horoscope videos, that June, there's a video for June specifically that goes over every specific transit that happens every week more in depth. I don't cover them in the horoscopes because I think the transits are more accurate for you on an individual basis with your chart. So with the horoscopes, I just go over kind of the general themes that are coming up for the month ahead, not necessarily how each individual transit is affecting you, because that's more appropriate for a one-on-one astrology reading. All right, so then Saturn will be stationing retrograde until the end of the year on the 17th at 7 degrees of Pisces. And then on the 21st, it's the summer solstice. The sun is going to move into Cancer, and it's going to be highlighting where Venus had been in May and at the beginning of the month. And so again, there might be this need to kind of break free and explore. Cancer makes a trine to Scorpio. Water likes water, so it's a positive energy for you. I forgot to talk about the new moon that happens right before this. So we actually need to scale back before we get into Cancer season. So on June 18th, before the summer solstice, we're going to have a new moon in Gemini, kind of closing out the Gemini chapter. And that's going to be highlighting that same area that has to do with your shared assets, resources. So, you know, if there's themes around those things like your marriage or your assets or debt, investments, you know, anything like that, new moons are times for setting intentions towards what you want to grow or manifest in that way. And so this is a really positive time for you to set intentions and reflect on those themes in your life and what you want to call in, and doing some kind of ritual around calling that into your life. So those things are highlighted. Okay, let's get back to Cancer season. So the 21st, summer solstice, Cancer season starts. That ninth house area gets highlighted, makes a happy trine to Scorpio, and you might feel restless. You might be ready to expand and grow and evolve and move forward in life in a way that maybe In the past, you were kind of still in this stagnant bubble. And so, you know, again, if there's things that you want to grow in academically, this is supported and highlighted. If it's more about just getting out of the mundane and exploring the world, that's supported. If there's spiritual things that you want to, you know, explore, that is also supported. There's a lot of really positive energy around getting you out of the mundane or getting you out of the maybe funk that maybe you felt like you were in during the retrograde. I feel like we were all feeling that. And Mercury is only going to be here. I'm sorry. I don't know why I just went back to Mercury. I'm having a little bit of a ditzy brain fart moment. So we enter Cancer season, and that the sun brings vitality, life to this area. And then Mercury leaves Gemini on the 27th and joins the Cancer party. So we'll have Mercury kind of in this area that's really about planning things for you in kind of more the serious way. And then once it's done in Gemini and we're out of Gemini season, Mercury will join that Cancer party and elevate more of your desire to kind of break free and get more kind of in this seek to expand kind of energy. It's really positive if you're in an educational program. Your brain is very much like, I'm ready to learn. If you're in a teaching profession, this is also really positive energy for you. It boosts kind of your ability to disseminate knowledge and information. If neither one of those things are true, you might just be leaning more into the desire for your own expansion and growth in a deeper way, a spiritual way. And it can be academic too. Let's see if there's anything else I want to go over. I think that's it for the Scorpio horoscope. Again, if you want a further breakdown on some of the transits that are happening for the month, go watch the June 2023 astrology forecast where I break it down a little bit further. But I'm excited to see that some of the stuff that maybe you've been feeling a little bit more stuck in over the last month and a half, you know, due to Mercury retrograde and some of the other energies that we've had, it kind of feels like Scorpio is starting to really build some more momentum and kind of get out of some of that funk and feel kind of more of this need to just move forward and push forward. So kudos to you. I hope June is a good month, and I will see you all next month. And if you don't like this video, feel free to let me know in the comments why, if you're the same person that disliked the last one. I don't like it when people are mean to me, but if it's a Scorpio being mean to me, I'll probably just find it highly entertaining. You did it to yourself, Scorpio. All right, I'll see you guys next month.